Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Sanity Lunch. This is my very first Sanity Lunch, and this is the most sane person that I know right there. And so I'm bringing you to her. Before, as we start getting started, as people start to gather, I thought that, you mostly know me from Pen Parentis, as I'm the founder of Pen Parentis, which is a nonprofit that provides resources to writers to help them stay on creative track after they start a family. So today we're going to talk with Dr. Tichy, and she is going to tell us how to do this. But as we wait for people to kind of gather, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, a little bonus for you guys, since you know me only as a founder of a nonprofit. I am from Texas, and I was raised by Lithuanian parents. So I was like the only Lithuanian in a cluster of non-Lithuanians. So it was an interesting outsider perspective on life. I am fluent in both languages. Very exciting news. I have 3 younger brothers, and in New York City here, I am married to a guy who has put up with me for almost 28 years, and that's pretty impressive. I know it means that I got married when I was about 11 years old, but shh, don't tell anyone. And what else? I am a Gemini, and that's cool. And my bachelor's degree is in music. This is like trivia about Milda to keep you comfortable. You can always start asking your questions on the chat as we're just gathering people. Let's see. I have an MFA from Columbia, which is where I met Christina, who is the curator of Pen Parentis, and we were both students of Michael Cunningham. So that's also kind of exciting, I guess, to some people. And then I really am a writer as well as running Pen Parentis. I just had a new piece accepted to a British literary magazine called Ellipsis. I have a story out right now in the Santa Barbara Literary Journal. And last year, I went on a literary horror kick, and I had a story out in Tales of the Canyons of the Damned, which is published by a person who has since become a good friend and a Pen Parentis member, and just a really positive guy. So a little shout out to Daniel Arthur Smith. He is a USA Today bestselling author, and we cannot wait for his next novel to come out. And then I was also published in an anthology called Twisted Book of Shadows, which was an impressive anthology for being extremely inclusive in the world of horror. And it won a Shirley Jackson Award, and that was really amazing. And my short story, Cake, is dedicated to my awesome writing group. Very little known fact, it is called Who Wants Cake? Anyway, so I'm working on the final draft of my novel, and I am told that my nonfiction book, which is about how Pen Parentis got founded and a lot of our sort of tenets and precepts and how to do this balance thing, is coming out soon from Brooklyn Writers Press. So that's pretty exciting too, maybe even as early as the end of this year. And I want to know who is out there watching. So if you don't mind, drop your name and where you're from in the comments so that we can get to know who's watching us, because we can't see you. This isn't a Zoom, but we can see your comments. So if you're signed in to either Facebook or YouTube and watching, just drop us a line and say, hi, this is blah, blah, blah from wherever. And we'd love to know that you're there. Also, this is really for you. So we really want you to give us your questions. What's your situation? How can we help? Dr. Tichy is an educational psychologist. She knows all about how to keep writers productive. I am actually, and you can also hit the heart button so that we know you like us, and and all those great social media things. Woo, like, follow, all the things. But I wanted to introduce my guest, Dr. Michelle Tichy, and she earned her doctorate in educational psychology with an emphasis on social and developmental psychology from the University of Minnesota in 2006. She has been involved in the Holistic Education Special Interest Group at the American Educational Research Association for the past 19 years. In addition to her social justice work, she has lectured on whole child education, innovating educational systems, and parental support systems at conferences and symposia across the US and Canada these past 2 decades, pre-COVID. And she has also been featured on dozens of panels, which probably are now on Zoom. She trains teachers in mindfulness. She trains parents and educators in methods grounded in developmentally appropriate practice. She teaches and writes about heart-centered, nonviolent communication and secure attachment. And she has even won awards for her independent research. Recently, she developed and founded the HOPE Initiative, the Heart of Educational Psychology. It is a breakthrough program for parents that guides them step by step how to create an ideal educational and social emotional environment in which to guide their children while working from home, which is what we are all doing right now, a million of us. Since all school is currently homeschool, it is nice to talk to someone who's been thinking about these issues for longer than just the 2 months that we've been in quarantine. We've been in quarantine for like 6 years. Can you tell I'm recycling a bio? I feel like we've been in quarantine forever. Anyway, she's got a 6-year-old, is she still 6? And a 16-year-old. And so she's not just talking from her diploma. We are honored and very, very pleased to welcome back Dr. Michelle Tichy. Yay!
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here. And we have been under lockdown for 6 months now, at least.
Forever.
Yeah.
So crazy. And it doesn't seem like it's going to ever end.
But yes, I just to update my bio slightly, yeah. I have a 6-year-old who is fully virtually in school in 1st grade, and a 16-year-old who has started her junior year in high school virtually. So I definitely can talk to the realities of this moment, not just the broader research that I've spent my professional career working on. These are not normal times. And so I think it's a really nice time to have the opportunity to have some authentic conversation about what do we know pre-pandemic that might help us to make these times a time of thriving rather than just surviving. That's my goal right now, is to help parents believe that they can move from a place of survival mode into really feeling like they and their children can thrive.
That is amazing. And I want to just to prove that we actually can see you guys, I want to shout out, hi, Lisa, hi to Rachel, hi to Catherine, who's calling in from Ireland. Hey, man. That's awesome. Like, this is really cool. I'm really, really glad that you guys are all out here. Nicole, does she have a question? No, she just has 2 kids in virtual school. Good luck, Nicole, with that. That's pretty exciting. I do have a question that was sent in earlier, Michelle, that you can just start with. And you guys who are on the comments, like, send in your questions. We're here to answer your questions. So the first question comes from Linda, who lives in Boston. We have 2 working parents and 2 kids on laptop classes. We are fortunate enough to have devices for all 4 of us, but I keep getting into arguments with my wife because she thinks her day job is more important than mine. I do not make as much money as her. I know that this is not the forum to talk about that issue, but I wanted to ask if everyone, okay, so here's a question. If everyone only prioritizes based on school needs and then job income, how am I ever going to get time to write? It feels that with everyone working from home, I'm always either helping the kids on Zoom calls or getting extra work from my day job. I think all of us can, like, hands up. Hands up if you feel that way. Click like if you feel that.
Well, and I actually will respond to this from a perspective. I didn't intend to talk about it all, but I'm married to someone who is a musician and a music therapist and a music educator, and I'm the primary breadwinner. So he and I actually have had conversations about how do we create more balance so that he doesn't feel like he can't do his work, which is very much like, that's very much the position that many writers are in, right? Because if you're not making as much as your spouse, then it is easy to fall into the trap of assuming whoever's making less or who doesn't have rigid deadlines, rigid being relative, right? Because I know when I do writing, I feel like my deadlines are pretty rigid and specific, but because they're internal deadlines, often they're different than I have a 3 o'clock meeting with the CEO. And so I think this is actually, I didn't plan to talk about this today, but I think it's a really important time to think about having proactive, heart-centered, nonviolent conversations with the other adults in our world, because we do need to find that true balance. And a writer or a musician or anyone else who does more quote unquote flexible work needs to also be able to schedule, relatively speaking, in this crazy moment, right? We need to be able to schedule with respect from our partners that time to get our work done. And this—
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what does a heart-centered conversation look like, and how do you do that if you have children bothering you all the time?
Okay, so I'm going to quickly teach a very simple strategy, which is from the actual nonviolent communication method. It's called OFNER. The first O is for observe. The second letter, which is F, is feeling. The third letter is N for need. And the final one, the R, is for request. So for example, if I observed that I wasn't being given the opportunity, here, let me just model it. That will be easier. Then I can talk through it.
Let's pray.
So, Milda, I observe that when you spend all your time closed up in your office and don't come out to help the kids when they are asking for help, that I feel angry and frustrated because I need to feel like my needs are being met as well. May I ask that we create a schedule for the time that I am taking care of the kids' needs and the times that you need the kids' needs?
You want a schedule?
Yes, I'm looking to create.
My job is so important. I don't know when my calls are going to be. How am I supposed to know if I'm able to do it or not?
But so if we're using the OFNER method, if we're using, this is one strategy where we're leaning into, like, without accusing anyone of anything, we're truly observing, expressing our feelings, expressing our need, and making a clear request. And this takes us out of this conversation where we're like, oh my God, I can't believe you never give me any time.
So how do you actually deal with the ultra defensive response? Because I think all of us over the last 6 months have honed our defensive skills and can tell when somebody is actually criticizing us, even if they're telling us in the nice way. Like, how do you that jump into defensive-ness happens? You know, not like this happens in my experience or anything, but like fast. It happens really fast. So how do you either preclude it or break through it, or like once you've touched it, it's like, you know, I've touched the sore. Oh, I've pressed that button. How do you backtrack off that?
So I would start with, like, very simple, take a deep breath and find a way to maybe wait to talk about it until a little bit later in the day when our emotions are calmer and we have the capacity to be more centered about things.
So you would say, like, okay, let's not talk about this now. Let's talk about it in an hour or two, or over dinner, or after we watch some cute TV show or something.
Yeah.
Just put it off. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Here's one. Nicole asks, I have a few hours to write over 2 days a week. I feel like it takes me so long to get into the groove that it feels more like 20 minutes across 2 days. How can I get there quicker? How can she get into her creative mind set?
So this is one of those things. Creativity is a finicky thing, right? So we have to figure out what works for us. For some people, it's doing intentional mindfulness like activities, whether it's breath work or doing something that just really gets you into your zone. I can't say for sure what's going to work for one person versus another. For me, just being able to do something very physical and then just breathe allows me to get back into like I'm grounded, I'm here, I'm ready to be in my creative self. For some people is playing, like your own form of playing, whatever engages those higher order, you know, neurons that get you into your creative space. Especially under the current circumstances of the pandemic and all the things we're juggling, it may be useful to start doing the things that transition you into your creative mode, if you can find some that you can still do while you're attending to your children or doing other things. I find that I have started unloading the dishwasher as a mindfulness activity, as a way to, like, I actually turned it into a mindfulness practice in order to make sure that A, it gets done, and B, I start my day off, because I often end up unloading the dishwasher first thing in the morning with intention and peace in my heart, which also allows me to slide more easily into creative mode, writing mode, and or juggling a first grader on virtual school mode.
I love the idea of turning some kind of housework into a mindfulness activity. Like, I mean, I know, I have to say, there are a lot of people who have reported that folding laundry is kind of a space where they kind of reset. Yeah. And it's interesting to think that a chore, like a household chore, might be a thing that you can flip on. Instead of being more and more angry that you have to do it, you could like use that to recenter. And I will say that from our meetups, other writers have said that to get themselves into their creative mode, this is for Nicole, that they spend, as you say, like about an hour before they're going into it, just in their heads deciding what they're going to do. So that while they're cleaning up or doing whatever, right before their 2 hours begin, they already know, well, when I sit down, I'm going to just go into this thing, and then I'm going to try to work on this one piece of dialogue, and what is not working about that dialogue, and kind of do the thinking part of it while you're still with the family, if you can. Like, try to get at least some of that thinking started, so that when you do sit down, you know exactly where you're going to start. And then maybe that's a little bit easier. And the other thing that is also from the meetups, I will say that her name is Vanessa, and she brought the idea of 1,000 shitty words into our vocabulary, in which you just don't care in the beginning what you're like. Don't judge yourself when you first sit down to write. Just put garbage on the page. Don't judge it. It can be edited later. The important thing is to get into the actual writing of it, to actually move your fingers and get it moving and get it going. Let's see. Oh, here's one. Wait, somebody. Okay. Generally, I might steal a little time in the evenings for my own writing, but steal is in quotation marks. But given how human interaction is for my kids, 7 and 12, right now, it feels like a priority should be spending time with them. So how do you, okay, that's a big question. Like, how do you, writing, this is kind of I'm going to jump into this question of guilt. Writing is frequently considered by writers as a me time activity, something that I am stealing, something that I am doing for myself. Can you flip that in your head so that it's like really important, and like you're not just stealing, you're not stealing the time, you're like, this is time that you're supposed to be doing something. And then how do you balance that with the guilt of being like, I guess it's two questions. One is, can you flip your brain to stop thinking of something that's pleasurable as bad? And can you change guilt into something else?
So yes, and I will speak to another aspect of what this person is asking, which is kind of, it sounds like her kids need more social interaction in the evenings. So one thing we know, and we actually have some research from the pandemic on this, is that kids who are given 15 to 30 minutes a day of dedicated time with individually with a parent, they actually feel like they have gotten 10 times more time than that from their parents, just because it's completely focused on them and whatever they want to do at that time with that parent. And so to ameliorate some of the, A, my child needs social interaction with me, and B, I'm feeling guilty for writing, which we'll get into in a second, I strongly recommend scheduling, if not on a daily basis, close to it, especially on school days, a 20 to 30-minute block with each child that is their time with you. And that does not have to be at the time you would normally be writing. Just find a time. I spend the first 30 minutes of my first grader's morning with him every morning, doing whatever he wants with me. And that way, I feel like, and he feels like he's gotten his bucket filled with mommy time. And then when I have to set boundaries around, I'm teaching in class or I'm speaking on a panel, he has a better time respecting that. Similarly, I do spend that type of time with my daughter before she goes to bed at night, checking in or looking at videos, whatever floats her boat that day. Because of those quality moments, and truly it's like dedicating quality time to them, then I have less maternal guilt when I need to just do my thing. Now to the maternal guilt. I think this is, whether you're a writer or something else, the maternal guilt is a big challenge right now, because we want the best for our children and we want them to have what they need. Often we want to let them have what they want, right? And so I think it's really important to value ourselves and our work and our time, so that they feel like we're not being mean or excluding them from our world, but really create boundaries around it and say, this is my dedicated time to write. And the rest of this time, I have to support you in what you need, or I'm dedicating this 20 or 30 minutes to you to do whatever you want with me, whether it's have a conversation or play a game. And then building in some more of those family, especially if you truly have kids who are lacking social interaction right now, create opportunities within your week for larger blocks of time where you're interacting as a family that are separate from the time that you need for your writing. There are 24 hours in a day. Yes, we need to sleep, but I'm not an OCD scheduler where I block everything out. But I think doing a little more of the micro scheduling, where we really think through, what do I need to get accomplished tomorrow, and block those times off in a very intentional way. And also thinking about, we're managing our kids at home and their education a lot of the time. So be realistic about how you manage time right now.
I think I particularly really like the beginning of that, where you, with there's only 30, if you do an intensive 30 minutes, that is like a gift that you're giving, and that it actually echoes bigger. Like, I don't think there's enough said for like the actual numbers of like, because we feel like there's never enough. You never feel like you're doing enough. You could be doing this day and night and still like, knitting deep into the wee hours of the morning, whatever. Like, it's nice to know that there's actually studies that say like half an hour intense. I mean, they do it for exercise. You'd think they could do it for parenting, right? Like that the 7-minute exercise is just as good as a 1 hour workout if you really intensely do it. So you can intensely parent, you guys, intensely parent, and then intensely write. Listen, I just got an email from Casey, and she says, question for Michelle. Sorry, I was checking my email during the thing, but it was, the subject line was Sanity Lunch. So I thought, I am just wondering if you have any advice for managing young children, like toddlers, who cannot concentrate on school in front of screens or becomes addicted to watching online videos. What can we do? What can we do to occupy young children to become more independent so that my husband and I can get some work done? Oh, she's in Buenos Aires. These people from cool places. I love people from cool places. I love you people who are not from cool places. I mean, I guess New York. Well, from cool places.
I'm gonna get into developmentally appropriate expectations, and some of this is not gonna, like, some of this may not be happy news for those of you who have children under 3, because for the first 3 years of life, children are expected to have zero capacity to occupy themselves. So if you have a child under the age of 3 who can occupy themselves, even for a couple minutes, you are blessed and just count it as a blessing. My best advice for 3 and under is make sure they're safe. Make sure you rotate toys so that they have novel things to interact with in a safe environment. And don't expect them to go more than 15 to 20 minutes completely autonomously, even in a playpen. Like, that age is very much a hands-on age. I wrote my dissertation, though, with my daughter from birth to 18 months. So a lot of that for me was writing while breastfeeding, putting her down for a nap next to me while I'm working, writing in 15-minute blocks. That's how I completed my PhD, and my full dissertation was in 15-minute micro blocks. And that does not, like, I was, before I got a PhD in educational psychology, I am a creative writer. Like, that is my groove. I love creative writing. I do it for fun. That's not normally how my creative writing ever went. Like, I was a sit down and write until I got it out of me type of person. But I learned a skill as a new mom getting my PhD, that micro blocking writing time actually can work, and work really well. And with little ones under 3, I highly recommend it. Think about your time in 15-minute increments, not in hours. Now, when we get to the 3 to 5-year-olds, 3 to 6-year-olds, now we're ready to do independent play. And now the more novelty, diversity, and don't give them everything. Like, don't throw them in the playpen, or the playroom every time, or whatever space you have with all their toys every time that you want to get work done, because then whatever, they see the same toys every day. Weed out some of the stuff that they really love, and then introduce it when you most need to get something done. If you've got the resources to get some new novel toys, especially with under 6-year-olds, that can help you. Boxes can help. Being comfortable letting them have markers and crayons and a giant empty box, that's great for the 3 to 5-year-olds. A lot of what it is with young children is being able to manage our expectations, set realistic expectations, and be comfortable with the fact that any child under the age of 5 is a risk for A, trying to flee, and B, freaking out on us, right? So we can have the best plan in the world, but we gotta be flexible.
So true. And I will say also, from a Pen Parentis point of view, like, I know that I have run Zooms where people have, in 15-minute increments, they have written novels, they can work. It is hard. And it's the hardest thing, I think, is changing your own expectations for what you used to be able to accomplish before you had the, children, and to now see that you're just going to have to change. You're just going to have to, if you want to keep your career. And it doesn't mean that your career is going to end. Your career could get a lot better. Like, it's just the way that you process your writing. You're not going to have, when you have a 0 to 3-year-old, you are just not going to have hours and hours and hours on end with your glass of wine and your 5 cigarettes. And, like, it's not happening, and the Yaddo residency for 3 months, that,
no,
that may happen in the future, but it is not going to happen probably with the 0 to 3-year-old. So, but that's not to say that nothing can be done, because, first of all, a lot of people write shorter things. They find that it is easier to process smaller things. So they write microfiction or poetry, or very short, like either like a blog style creative nonfiction, or small articles. Luckily, the internet has no attention span, so you can actually publish like crazy when you have a 0 to 3-year-old, if you can manage to write very small things in that small amount of time that you have. So anyway, those are just the Pen Parentis end of the thing.
Absolutely.
Let me look through these real quick. With everyone at home, there is more housework than ever. It's hard to switch off in almost any space since there always seems to be one more chore needing to be done. I believe that. That is true. Help us, Michelle.
So this one's a challenge for me. So I'll speak from my own like pain here. I very much have a hard time. I was like, I'm never gonna be able to work from home. I can't function because I want to get all the little itty bitty housework chores and the really big house projects done because I have to see them when I'm at home. But what I've ended up doing is creating a micro space in my house that is my workspace. And when I come in here, I am in my work mode and I do not have permission to be involved in anything outside. Now, literally, this is funny because we didn't want the dog to get in here. We put one of those giant like baby gates up along the edge of my space, so that like when I come into my playpen, I can't do anything else in the house. So if you have some silly like thing that you could do, whether it's putting something over your door that cues to you that I am in work mode, I do not have permission to care that there are dishes in the sink. We have to do this. This is our own job to reprogram ourselves to be able to have some way to flip that switch, because I'm there with you. This is hard, and I would never get anything done professionally if I was always doing the things I wanted to get done around the house. And this is a great time to teach our kids the value of chores and the value of helping out around the house and renegotiate things with our partners, so that we are clear about who's doing what when, so that we don't have to internalize the need to do everything, because that is definitely a challenge right now for many of us.
All right, so now I have a funny one. Okay, so this is from Stacy, who lives in New Jersey. Do you have any tips on how to get kids to stop asking me for every little thing? They can easily get their own snacks and fix most problems on their school Zooms, but instead of helping each other, they yell at me, or for me, sorry. They yell for me. That might have been a slip on my part. They know that I'm just in the next room. So how do I stop that behavior?
So it would help if I knew the ages, but I'm going to assume elementary school age in this case. If you have middle schoolers or high schoolers doing this, it's a whole separate conversation, and I'll go there. But first, let's just deal with my assumptive answer, which is that they're elementary school age kids. So with elementary school kids, a lot of them are feeling anxiety about this whole situation. And so part of the regressive kind of emotionally less mature behavior of yelling for mom or dad all the time is coming from a place of not feeling fully safe, not being sure about all the circumstances. So the first thing I would do is find ways to address underlying causes outside of school hours. So let's do that micro time with each child dedicated, where they know we are going to give them our undivided attention, like I mentioned with the other question earlier. And let's also
schedule, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but do you schedule that? Like, would you say like, okay, 4 o'clock when the little hand is on the whatchamadig, that's when mom's going to come and spend all the time with you? Is that?
I would definitely, especially if that's something that your child would value. I know that my 16-year-old likes it if we schedule girl time, like the two of us hang out from 9 to 9:30 tonight. And that's on the calendar. And if she wants to use that time to just talk about her friends, then we can talk about her friends. If she wants me to look at something related to her schoolwork, she's writing her first play right now for her theater class, I know. So we can use that time for that. And in general, I try to use that dedicated time with them for more whatever they want and need. I also make sure that I'm available for them at specific times during the day for schoolwork related stuff. So in this particular case with the question that Stacy asked, I would highly recommend making sure that the kids are feeling confident and secure at the beginning of the school day, and that we're clear about when we're going to check in with them. Because most crises are not really crises, right? And if they need a snack, we need to be proactive. Maybe every single morning for the next week or two, you're saying, remember, you are welcome to get a snack whenever you need one. And whatever your house rules are around that, remind them that. Be ridiculously repetitive the way an elementary school teacher would be. Don't.
That doesn't make
sense. Like if you are saying, I want you to get your own snacks, and every morning, remember, you are welcome to get your own snacks when you want them. I will check in with you at 10:30. And unless there is a fire or you are completely locked out of your computer, I would like you to try to figure this out on your own. And maybe you come up with their top 10 challenges they have and write out or print out frequently asked question sheet for them to put next to their laptop. And this is really going to be dependent upon your own child. Like my first grader, I actually have to work in the same space as him during the mornings because though he just isn't ready to navigate all the switching between logins and all of that. So I schedule my mornings so that I can be on for him, and my spouse is the one who takes over at lunch break and does the rest of the day. That's how we've chosen to divide our day up, so that one of us is always in the same room with our first grader. Kindergarten and first grade are not like older elementary school kids. And even if we think they can do all of this by themselves, they're still not old enough cognitively to really feel confident in it. Second graders, going to depend on the kid. Third grade and up, they can probably manage pretty well if their school set things up pretty easily for them.
Yeah, it's funny because when when you were saying the grades, and I was thinking like by third grade, my son was perfectly easily installing games on his computer, like figuring out how to chat with people globally. Like there was no like tutoring there. I didn't have to go and help him learn how to talk to his friends in Australia, and it's interesting because we don't, we think that they're sort of incapable of all this Zoom stuff because it's hard for us, but maybe it's a bit easier for them.
It often is.
Given that like permission to sort of go for it, figure it out, then maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? I'm hoping that you people who are watching will ask questions because it would be really nice to have more specific questions to answer because I love Michelle's answers. They're always very exciting. In the meantime, while we wait for you guys to ask us some questions, Michelle, can you talk about the HOPE initiative and what it does and how it works? And it's for this, like it is for, it turns out to be perfect for quarantine.
So I created the Heart of Educational Psychology for Parents, and I actually have a specific program name now for the pandemic, which is Parenting Through Uncertain Times. And my goal is to take parents from a place of survival mode to a place of thriving. And the things that I am helping people with are introducing mindfulness and nonviolent communication into your household in order to reduce stress, helping you to understand developmentally appropriate expectations for your children. So that would be going over guess what? You can't expect to block off 3 hours a day if you have a 2-year-old, and saying, actually, your 12-year-old probably can manage perfectly fine throughout the entire day. And really, dealing with these differences that occur as our children age, because our 3-year-old's not the same as our 6-year-old. Our 6-year-old's not the same as our 9-year-old. And sometimes, even though we know that, we need to be reminded of that. Another thing that I spend a lot of time working with parents on in parenting through uncertain times is knowing your child, not just their age and stage, but also what things are particular to them. What are some of their specific social emotional needs? Are they a highly anxious child? Are they a highly sensitive child? Are they a child who needs everything written out for them? Or are they a child who does better with verbal explanations? Knowing your child is something that we all intuitively do with our children, but having the capacity to know them on that deeper level is really, really helpful, especially when we're dealing with this crazy moment in human history, right? And then I work with parents on emotional intelligence skills, compassion and empathy within your households, and then proactive resilience development, working on concepts around motivation.
What is proactive resilience development, please?
You want to talk about active resilience development? So
yeah, I just want to know what it is.
We know that resilience is our capacity to bounce back when something goes wrong.
Right.
So active engagement of resilience is encouraging our kids to make mistakes and learn from them. It's giving them permission to fail sometimes. Say, yes, I want you to try to do this. And being there to catch them when they fall and say, okay, creating that volcano didn't work that way. Let's figure out what we need to do differently next time, kind of like a scientist would. With a creative project, wow, you tried to write your first draft of a scene for a play you want to write, and I don't understand what they're actually talking about. Let's figure it out.
It's not different from criticism, just more ebullient.
And it's really proactive, positive lens on, creating these opportunities to mess up and be messy and be okay with that. Because some of the best learning we have comes from making mistakes. And often in our society right now, we're very fixated on everything being just so. We want everything to be perfect. And our kids internalize that.
Well, I doubt that anybody sees a crashed Zoom classroom and just goes, oh, well, things get messy. Like, well, let's play a game until it comes back up. Like most of us are like,
Right.
And maybe that could change in us. I wish it could change in me. I have a good question from Catherine on the online. She says, any suggestions on how to stick to our boundaries? My husband will appear to help at times. He comes out to help. I know this person. I'm here to help. or to get drinks or food when he's not on a work call, which throws my schedule with the baby. And then he will offer me a half an hour to write. It sounds ungrateful, but I feel pressured to create, and I'm not expecting that to be until hours later.
So this sounds like a really important adult conversation.
And it also sounds like your husband wants to help, which is
so that's good. So this is one of those things where we're gonna work on introducing nonviolent communication strategies. So from what Catherine said, I'm not you, but this is a nonviolent communication strategy I might use in this situation. So I would observe that to your husband, when you come in and try to help me out in the middle of the time that I'm spending with the baby because you're not on a work call, I feel frustrated and overwhelmed because I need to know when I can get my work done and when I'm taking care of the baby without being disrupted in that process. And I would like to request that we try to create a more formal set of expectations about what I need when and what you're going to do when, so that I can feel safe and secure and also be able to be more creative as a writer.
Yeah. And how awesome of you to offer to help.
Yes.
Here's how you can help.
Yeah. So we want to, like, gratitude is useful in this, so as kind of creating a very calm observational statement that you may need to wait. Like, don't do it in the middle of being disrupted by your husband. Do it when you actually are a little calmer later in the day and you're able to say, so I observed that I felt really stressed out when you offered help in the middle of me spending time with the baby, and I felt overwhelmed by the offer of being able to do writing at that moment because I wasn't in the right frame of mind. So it's really one of those things where let's have a lot of gratitude and find a way to communicate that says, I am so grateful and love that you're willing to help me, and yet I need to have this done differently next time.
It is extraordinarily difficult, given that most of the time when we're not actively like talking to people, we're watching drama in which conflict, like as writers, we create conflict. Like that's what we look for, conflict. It is our job to create conflict in every scene when we are writing. So in our heads, we're mostly like, this person and this person should argue or yell or throw things. And so, and then we watch TV, which is nothing but like conflict after conflict for the entire hour, or the movie. And what you're asking us to do is to just observe. Just observe. Don't comment. Don't get involved. And that passive observer is something that we're weeding out of our fiction. So
Right.
And even out of nonfiction now, like even creative nonfiction is like, get a hook, go, make them crazy, make them argue, get comments. It's really interesting how this may be affecting us as people.
Yes.
Where can we get examples of observational language that doesn't sound snarky? I observe that you're pissing me off.
So I highly recommend actually Google nonviolent communication, and you can go on YouTube and get phenomenal, like really well-crafted conversations of people taking what was originally a conflict and translating it into peaceful communication with someone that they otherwise would have been in conflict with. You can also reach out to me. I do nonviolent communication specifically for parents and families, and it's a work in progress. I'm a hothead. I was born in New York. I have a Latin temper. My mom is Venezuelan. Like, all those stereotypes fit me. So learning nonviolent communication is really part of my journey to be a more peaceful parent and a more peaceful partner. So I love helping people use these skills and develop them.
I'm going to ask these two questions and make sure that we get them both in. One is to also sort of jumping off of Catherine. Caitlin asks, I would love some tips for setting a writing schedule with a partner who has an always changing work schedule and a 10-month-old and a 3-year-old to care for.
Oh, so first, like, props for you to getting any writing done with a 10-month-old and a 3-year-old.
Dude, you're on the Zoom. This is amazing. Or whatever.
Yeah, like just props to you for getting anything accomplished with those little ones. So constantly changing work schedules usually have some forewarning. So we may not.
Just a minute. She followed up with, she struggles with micro blocks of writing spontaneously in times that just pop up. So go ahead.
So recognizing that in yourself is really helpful. What I would love to have clarification on is your partner's schedule such that you would know at least 24 hours ahead of time what his schedule is the next day? Because if your partner's schedule gives you at least that much forewarning, you can do scheduling in 24-hour blocks. That is not an uncommon problem to have. It's one that takes some adaptability and flexibility, clearly. My schedule is not such that we are very good at scheduling a month out, but we can usually schedule on a Sunday for the following week. In other cases, people have to actually schedule the night before for the next day.
We actually check in with each other at breakfast, at like in the morning. We have like a time at which before breakfast that we all don't sit and eat together, but we check in with each other to see like what's on for your day, what new things happened overnight that we didn't know about. And then we try to get some kind of a schedule. I didn't even realize that we do that, but
recognizing the things you're already doing. So that may be the best strategy, what Milda's talking about and what I am referring to in my own household, which is find a time every day to check in with your partner that allows you to foreshadow a schedule for the next day or that day. Don't wait until it's a crisis. Just be proactive. Like, okay, as long as your partner knows by 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning what that day is going to look like, you can proactively create a schedule for the day that will give you your writing blocks that are hopefully more than micro blocks, and will avoid the trap of you don't do well with spontaneous writing times. So, you know, it's a little bit extra forethought, but it's something that I think would pay off a lot, is just taking advantage of a ritual or routine like that on a daily basis.
I have a question, because one thing that I've noticed is that this whole entire call, we talk a lot about having supportive partners, and there are certainly gazillions of single moms or single dads or just people who don't have extra support in the house that they can just be like, I'm sorry, it's your kid, do it. Or I'm sorry, it's not your kid, do it anyway. Like, you love me, do this. Like, not everybody has that. Do you have any, like, what can they do to give themselves, I don't know, permission or something, help?
Well, I think in that case, it's easier if you're a single parent than if you have a truly unsupportive partner. And I could spend a lot more time unpacking the problem with a truly unsupportive partner, because that creates a level of stress and tension and undermining of your capacity to do what you need to do. If you are a single parent and you have a child under 3, just understand that you're going to be working on their time, period, end of story. Like, there is no other options if you are a single parent with children under the age of 3. And I wish there was some magic bullet here, but basically nap time is your friend if you're a single parent and have kids under 3. Otherwise, single parents usually can find really good rituals and routines and a flow with their child or children from 3 all the way through high school. Now, if there's, you know, health issues or mental health issues, then we're dealing with that separately. But typically, a child over the age of 3 can be occupied for a block of time with awesome toys and maybe some TV show in the background so that you can get some writing done. And school-age children, you know, aside from they may not be able to manage all the details of their virtual school day right now, in general, they're going to be able to occupy themselves. And again, the more just loving kindness you have towards them to try to meet their needs so that they don't feel so needy while you're trying to get writing done, the better off you are. So again, like, I know it can be a challenge being a single mom. I was a single mom for 5 years with my daughter when she was 2 until she was 7. But I also know that that's doable because it's you and your child or children, and you're setting the rules, expectations, boundaries, and the tone for the household.
That's actually really important. Like, nobody's undermining you. Nobody is second guessing you. Nobody is saying their job is more important than your job. Like, you get to be in charge.
Yes.
If that's tiresome and difficult. Yeah. But okay, so this question is interesting to me, and I'm sure you'll have good answers for it. Do you have any mindfulness techniques for children who are resistant to mindfulness techniques?
Don't, if they're already resistant to the word mindfulness, don't use that. Do they like stomping? Do they like dancing? Do they like singing? Do they like, do they like doing animal stretches? there are ways to have kids doing mindfulness strategies and breath work without telling them that's what they're doing. My son likes to sit, he actually likes doing this stuff, but he loves Cosmic Kids, which is an Australian yogi who does videos that are available both on YouTube and Amazon Prime, specifically for children in elementary school and preschool. And so he does yoga fairly regularly with Cosmic Kids as his yogi. Cool. Finding things like that, more and more there's like kids dance party stations, both on the TV streaming services as well as on Apple Music and places like that. All of those things can be really, really helpful. You can also do primal screaming. If your kid really doesn't like these other types of strategies, give them permission to scream into a pillow when they're frustrated. That's a mindfulness practice. Having them having them stomp around the house and take really big, loud breaths, like breathe in, whoo, 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 out. Like you can, they're all like, I could send you hundreds of little pointers because there's a lot of cool work that's been done on getting mindfulness in disguise into schools, partially because there are school districts nationally, especially in the Bible Belt, that banned everything related to yoga and meditation from them back in the early 2000s. And so because of that, those of us who do work in mindfulness and education found ways to sneak it in, because kids actually really benefit from knowing how to breathe themselves back into their own centers, recognize what they're feeling, and express it in a calm way. Even like if they're a little artist, you can give them a piece of blank paper and some markers or crayons and say, we're just going to listen to this peaceful music, probably meditation music, and draw for a couple minutes. And that can be a way to get them more engaged with mindfulness in the household. But it's, again, knowing your child is going to be more helpful than me throwing a million wild ideas at you.
So it just sounds like basically like know your kid, just really assess, like sit down and assess your family and sit down and assess your situation. Take that time, right? To just think about what actually is going on. It's interesting because a lot of people, I mean, there's a lot of people watching and not a lot of people writing their questions. And I'm wondering if it's because as you're actually writing a question down, you end up solving it. You know, because like actually just writing down, like if I were going to pay $400, like here, what is my like core problem? It kind of puts you in this mindset of like how you know, can I solve this problem on my own? I don't know. Like it's, but I would love it if anybody else would like drop a question in the comments, because it's kind of fun to answer them and it's fun to know who's out there. I love that there's like people interacting on the thing. What would you say? What would be just like an overall, we're near the end of our time. So give an overall kind of like piece of advice that would work for almost anybody to be able to be more productive and let their kids be also productive.
Be aware that you need to find ways that work for you to do self-care every day. Even if it's while you're taking a shower. Just really give yourself permission to reset yourself, because if you come from a place of grounding and peace into handling all the things you're juggling right now, you're going to be a more productive writer, you're going to be a more peaceful parent, and you're going to be able to be more present to the work that you are trying to accomplish.
That's wonderful.
Self-care.
Yeah, I love this advice. You guys, I'm going to thank you all for coming, whoever's out there. And thank you for the people that sent in questions. And thank you so much, Michelle. It's amazing to see. I love hanging out with you. And I want everybody to know that Pen Prentice is there for you. So if you're not familiar with Pen Prentice, it is a nonprofit. It does provide resources to writers who have kids. So those resources are everywhere from, we have a free board that's a jobs board for people to list their writing, they're sort of writing related side gigs where they're making money. Like if you have editing, if you're a sensitivity reader, if you have a workshop or something like that. We have on our website, it's on the Writer Parent Annex website. So if you go to writerparentannex.com, there we have new resources that are almost all COVID related, so that we have the jobs board and we have a list of residencies for writers that are parents. It's only the residencies that have something special to offer parents. So anyway, it's a pretty great section of resources. We also have meetups and we have our salons. The next one is in October, second Tuesday of the month. We have different groups of writers that have already published something, even though they have kids. And so we welcome you all to come and join us on that. And with that, I just want to thank Dr. Michelle again. drmishtish.com is her website, and go and find out more about the Hope Initiative. And we will see you the next time I feel like having a sanity lunch. I hope you all had fun.